Welcome. We'll make a start on item 2.9, implementation of Destination Hauraki Coromandel review recommendations. We might hand it straight over to you, Mitch, to give us a bit of a briefing, and then we'll crack into it.
Sure. Good afternoon. Today, we're making decisions on the trust deed and a letter of expectations and around the board appointments. This follows the review of Destination Hauraki Coromandel and the recommendations from Martin Jenkins. I'll just, I guess, take a step back and talk for a minute about the timeline moving forward from here. Following today's decisions, there'll be a panel, hopefully, that appoints the new board members to the trust. In December, we'll be bringing those recommendations back to council, and there will also be a process where we set the new KPIs for the funding agreement, which will also be coming back in December. So stepping through the report, we have the restatement or the deed of the restatement of the trust deed, where the purpose has been changed to reflect the review recommendations, and there have been some minor changes to the deed to bring it in line with the latest legislation. Are there any questions in regards to the changes to the trust deed?
Councillors, any questions at this time? Okay.
Brilliant. Should we make a decision on at the end or?
I think so, because obviously we've got some panel appointments to be looking at, and then there's the trust deed and the letter of expectations. So I think if we work through, and excellent, come back to the resolutions and
sure thing. So the next item is the letter of expectations. The purpose of the letter of expectations is to be able to, I guess, manage outcomes from between both councils and their expectations of Destination Hauraki Coromandel, and to be able to do that on an annual basis. The KPIs for the funding agreement are set every 3 years, and the letter of expectations, which is signed by the chief executives, provides an avenue for both councils to be really clear about what the expectations are for that calendar year, or sorry, for the financial year. And are there any questions as they relate to the letter of expectations?
Oh, okay.
There is the potential for each council to have its own unique criteria. So within the letter of expectations, we've left a gap at the end of the letter there. If there are any specific expectations relevant to our district that are distinct from those that Hauraki District Council might have, that now's the chance to, I guess, have a contribution to that.
Question. Go ahead, please.
Can I just clarify from a funding point of view, is the expectation that the funding will remain at the same level, or is there still any discussions around increases to that?
For the funding for the trust? Yep. So it's just as it is in the LTP, which was the status quo plus inflation. Yep.
Thank you. Okay. What's next?
We have the board appointment process.
Mm-hmm. So we start with the panel appointment?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Nelly? Oh, sorry, Rika.
Sorry, thank you. I'd like to nominate John Grant into one of those panel positions, please.
No, I'm happy to second that.
Thanks, Terry.
Councillor Grant, John, whatever you guys are going to have to excuse me. I'm sometimes going to use your first name and I'm sometimes going to use your last name because sometimes I just don't remember. And
as long as we're using
just how it is.
I answered to both then.
All right, thank you. It's no disrespect whatsoever. It's just I sometimes don't remember. Thank you, Councillor Delly-Connell.
Oh, his name's wow. So I see something in the overview report about not publicly advertising the roles. And did I miss something?
Can we, in reading through this, it feels like it's better for us to deal with the panel appointments first and then look at the board process, which is where the advertising comes in separately. And I'm happy to be guided, but if we deal with the panel appointments, the 2 elected members, and then from there we move into the last part of it. That would be my preference, but I'm happy to be guided if you want to just do everything at once. So we have at the moment, we have a nomination for John. You're happy to do that? We need another one. Do we have another councillor that's keen to put their hand up to be on that panel?
Can I nominate Delly-Connell, Councillor Delly-Connell?
Anybody
Mayor?
can nominate anybody. So, yeah.
Maybe
Ellie, how do you
second
feel
that.
about that?
Thanks, Gary.
Yes. Hauraki have 2. Yes. Yep. Yep. This is the panel that goes through the recommendations for and the selection process for board members. Robin, Councillor Sinclair.
Are we happy with both people from this panel being from the same ward, or do we think we need strategically think, because particularly if we're not going out for public advertisement, do we need to be looking across the whole peninsula for representation on this panel?
If we go out for public advertisement, it is that's a process of appointments to the board. This is appointments to the panel.
So the point I'm getting at is that yes, I understand that. So if we've got 2 elected members on a joint advisory panel who are not, that panel is not publicly advertising, are we confident that we have enough representation across the entire tourism sector for the whole peninsula by electing 2 people to join the joint advisory panel who come from the same ward? That's my question.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good question, but it's a choice for councillors. Who's putting their hand up?
Yeah.
At the moment, we've had a nomination for John, we've had a nomination for Delly. There are no other nominations.
And if I can speak to it, I think that they are the right people because that's where the tourism centre is and it flows out from that. So their information is very much around what happens in that particular part of the Coromandel. And I know we all have parts around the tourist industry that we do, but that's where the crusts of all the action goes. So I think that's where the platform sits, is driving that market.
And I think just adding to that there will be representatives from Hauraki as well. So you'll see over on this side as well some 2 appointments. So I don't feel uncomfortable, but happy to hear from others if they do.
John.
And I'd like to address that specifically. I am a district councillor and I take that role really seriously. So, you know, I would not be focused on Mercury Bay. I would be looking at it from a district point of view.
Thank you.
It wasn't a slight about your intentions. It was a question about the acknowledgement of the networks.
Yeah, and not taking it as that either.
Delly.
So I'd like to add to that not yet coming to the advertise to see who exists. There could be someone sitting in Thames who has got a wealth of knowledge in tourism, and those are the people that are brought to us. I don't see John and I running around shoulder tapping people in Mercury Bay and saying, hey, do you want to be on the trust? I think there has to be a robust process of getting the right people in front of the panel to make sure they're appointed.
And that's the responsibility of the panel members, and I'm absolutely sure that'll be done in a fair and robust way. So at the moment we have just the two nominations. I'm just going to ask for a show of hands. Are we all comfortable with John and Delhi to take on those roles? Those in favour? Yeah. All right. Thank you. Congratulations, John. Congratulations, Delhi. And thank you for your contribution in advance. Okay, do good. All right. So we're now on to the let me just
of the committee.
double check my resolutions. Okay, so that if we go to page 122, item 5, Martin, please go ahead.
So just on that preferred option, section 9, towards the bottom of page 126, the bottom sentence says staff intend to return to council on the 10th of December with decisions on the board appointments. But does that, I'm assuming, should that actually be where they will be, council will be deciding on the board appointments based on what panel have?
On recommendations from the panel.
Right,
Yep. So that it still has to be a council decision.
right.
And so the panel from both councils will make recommendations to both Hauraki District Council and to TCDC Council.
So that's a date of a council meeting.
Yes, that's right.
December. All right.
And sorry, and just one further question. So is there expectation, an unfair question, with Hauraki District Council that of the 5 people on the directors, that there'll be even split and stuff, or is that getting in way too much detail?
I think it's just for the panel
That's too much detail.
to agree
Okay, no, that's
together.
all right, don't know.
Yeah, that's that's the whole purpose of the joint panel, is so that elected members from both councils can agree on those items.
So just a quick
Sure.
point of clarification,
and then Rick.
just a quick one for me. Just so it says that the current board will be dissolved and they'll select, is it completely new board or those old members can reapply?
No, so it's appoint 5 new members.
New members.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
But it might be that the chair stays on in a board position for a transition period.
Right.
I guess we just don't know how quickly we'll be able to fill those positions with quality candidates.
Okay. Thank you.
Rika?
I was just wondering whether it was easier if I moved option 1A and nominated Delly and John, and then moved option 1B. Does that help the resolution be tidier?
Let's have a look. So the guts of 1B is the decision to not publicly advertise board positions. So I agree with the strategy of separating those out. The recommendations are on page 122.
Oh,
Whilst the staff recommendation is to not advertise, we are preparing for the alternative as well.
Delhi. So feel free to just to address whatever you need to in this.
Thank you. Page 126, staff recommendations, approved draftee, blah, blah, blah. Letter of expectations, blah, blah, blah. Point to elected members, option 1A. Then it says decide to not publicly advertise board positions, option 1A.
Thank you. The staff recommendation is to not advertise, but there can be a decision to advertise, and we're preparing for both options.
Okay, that's why it needs to be separated out. The second question is page 128. We've got John David Sanford, Anthony middle name Coombe, Scott middle name Lee, and then new trustee and new trustee. So what does that mean if we're meant to be having 5 new people?
And this is on the trust deed. Sorry, if Ari, would you mind bringing up the documents on the screen? But it's because the draft deed of the restatement of the trust deed has to be prepared with some names on it, and so the deed will be signed when the new board members are appointed. Yeah, we just need to get each document agreed by both council in advance, and so this is going to Hauraki District Council at the end of this month. Sure.
So can I suggest then we go back to page 122. We look at items 1 through 4. And I'm going to propose that we get a mover and a seconder for those. And then we look at item 5 separately and have a discussion around the question of advertising or not advertising, which are those two options. So Terry and Rekka, all those in favour items 1 through 4? Aye, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Abstained. All right, thank you. Can we record Councillor Sinclair, please, abstaining on that? Okay, so that's carried. Now we'll look at item 5, which is if we go to pages 1 to 5 and 1 to 6, there are two options, 1B and 2B. I'm open to discussion around whether councillors think these should be advertised or not advertised. Delhi.
I'm a strong advocate for advertising positions because we just don't know who is in our district and what skill sets they bring. Also, we're spending $500,000 of ratepayer money on this organisation, and I'm not comfortable with the shoulder tapping sort of old boy network or old girl network or old they, them. I just feel like the Coromandel district or Thames Coromandel district attracts a lot of very, very talented people who quite often work from home or share their time between main centres and our district. And we may be looking at the same old, rather than actually looking at what quality of talent we've got out there in the community.
Thanks, Delhi. Discussion, Martin, please.
Agree totally with Councillor Daly's points.
Any other?
As do I.
All right. Okay, so we can put that and the feeling from councillors at the moment is that there should be advertising. So if we go to item 5, we would need to have an amendment to item 5. And I wonder whether we can amend that to say approves the selection and appointment of board members with the option of public advertisement, and to give as much flexibility to the panel.
I think it's just.
So we already have
Through the
an
chair.
option B.
Yeah, I'm not hearing that from councillor Connell. I heard option 2B.
2B. Yeah. So you just want to define it as.
And I'm happy to move 2B.
So I'm just looking at the wording on page 122. As long as we've got our wording right for the resolution, I'm fine.
It's actually on page 127 at the top, I think.
127.
Through the chair,
27.
we will just bring it up, but this is what we heard is approves option 2B, decides to advertise board appointments.
You happy with that wording?
I am. Now I'm moving.
Okay. All those in favour? Those against? Abstain? All right, that's carried. Thank you.
So just with the panel, we'll work with it was Delhi and John around timelines, and there'll be a person specification for considering their skills, knowledge, and expertise that are relevant to the board positions, and there will also be a process around assessing the remuneration of the board. The councillors already agreed that the remuneration will have to be found from within Destination Hauraki Coromandel's existing budget. But by just choosing to increase the board by 2, we acknowledge that there might be a small increase to the total remuneration, but that it won't or should not be proportional to the current remuneration of the existing board members. And then that panel collectively with Hauraki District Council and DC elected members can make those recommendations back to the respective councils on the 10th of December for the remuneration of the board members.
Thanks, Mitch.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
much appreciated.
And just, sorry to, timing, it's likely to be after now the Hauraki District Council meet at the end of this month, is that right? So it'll be in October.
Yeah, I would like to have it as soon, like at the end of this month. So Hauraki District Council meet on the 25th, and we'll be doing some prep work in advance of that, and then we'll be advertising immediately after their council meeting and just cracking straight into it. We'll send you an email with some details.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to item 2.10, water reform. I know we've got Mo for this. Who else have we got? We got Brett,
We have Ian Morton.
Ian, long lost traveller. You
So-
give me a bottle of whiskey. Sorry.
Just by way of introduction to this, we've had some quite challenging circumstances in the last 2 weeks trying to pull this report together. Probably on every level, staffing, content, availability of information. So the intention of this report is to provide for the receipt of both the Martin Jenkins work formally and also the Waikato Water Done Well formally. We don't think we're in a position to recommend a path into the CCO, but we also think we're not in a position to recommend not taking the path into the CCO. So we would like to delete resolution number 6. Our recommendation number 6 is too strong a position to take at this point in time. And you'll recall last week I've circulated the media statement from Taupo District Council. The staff recommendation is that we should probably take a similar approach, which is we're in the tent and we're interested, but we still haven't seen sufficient information or got far enough through the process to be able to give you a firmer recommendation than that. And I'll hand over to the team to speak through that in more detail.
Thanks, Aileen. Okay.
Thanks, Eileen. Good afternoon, Your Worship and councillors. Just to add on to Eileen's introduction to the water reform. So I think she's outlined the purpose of the report and what we are expecting from council today. In terms of legislative requirements, the preliminary arrangements bill, which is the first of the 3 pieces of the new water reform legislation, has gone through the 3rd reading and it is awaiting royal assent. So that is quite imminent. And the preliminary arrangements bill requires council to prepare a water supply delivery plan 12 months from the date of enactment. And in developing that plan, it requires council to look at different options and also consult with the community in terms of what is the best model for council. I will let Ian go through the details and Don is here as well to answer questions on the financial side. And we'll pass on to Ian.
We might grab you a different microphone, Mo, if that's all right. Long stalk one.
I can lean in. Can everyone hear me okay?
We can hear you. Mo's got quite a soft voice, so we do struggle to hear.
I'll add that to my KPI for training next day.
I couldn't possibly comment. That's an operational issue.
And can I just add, so it passed royal assent yesterday. So actually the legislation is now in effect for that preliminary arrangement. So that's now in effect. And really we've got 12 months to deliver a water services delivery plan. So I'll take the report itself as read. So we commissioned Martin Jenkins to prepare an assessment around whether TCDC could deliver a water services in the future on its own. That was the whole purpose. Could we do this on our own or not? The answer came back as yes, but obviously there's challenges around that. And that's clearly noted in the report, both in the recommendations that you've got in the appendices in your paper. What we plan to do is obviously look to deliver the water services delivery plan over the next 12 months. But any of the recommendations in the Martin Jenkins report, any of the challenges, we'll be addressing them through each of the sections of the water services delivery plan. And we have to do that anyway. And that's really going to be our main focus over the next 12 months, is preparing this water services delivery plan, having a look at options. And that's where the Waikato Water Done Well stuff comes in. So obviously the team at Waikato Water Done Well are pushing a regional approach, looking at a potential CCO to deliver this in an aggregated fashion. And as Aileen mentioned, we want to explore that. We really want to keep our options open. We want to understand what this means. So what we plan to do is there's the next step for the Waikato Water's Done Well, as per their paper, is sign off a heads of agreement, which is really kind of how we're going to work together. So that will be done by the end of October. And as part of that, we'll then be involved. We'll say this is important to us, and we'll come back to you as councillors at the end of October. So what we're seeking today is really agreement to be part of Waikato Water Done Well until the end of October. Beyond October, we need clarity from Waikato Water Done Well team around what the on and off ramps are. At the moment, we don't really understand what those on and off ramps are. At the moment, it's quite a binary. You're either in or you're out. And we, along with other councils, are saying we want to be in. We really do want to be in. We want to explore this. We want to understand the benefits and the opportunities. But we don't think a CCO is necessarily the right approach, but we want to be in to try and understand that. So we'll come back to you in October once we know more, and once we've got the heads of agreement in place, and hopefully by that point in time, we'll push the Waikato Water Done Well team for really clear on and off ramps, because we do need to consult on the water services delivery plan over the next 12 months. And as part of that consultation, we ideally want to have some options around, well, we could do it by ourselves and this is what it means, or we could do it regionally and this is what it means. So really good option analysis to support the decision making. So that's where we want to get to. We just don't have that clarity from the Waikato Water Done Well team about those on and off ramps. The next stage after the heads of agreement, we've been informed they'll look at a compliance strategy approach, which I think Vaughan and Don mentioned last week around, well, if you've got the Waikato River and you can maybe make some savings by not doing some things that are specific wastewater treatment plant, but change things up for another wastewater treatment plant, that's not relevant to us. We don't have those long streams of long rivers where we've got multiple wastewater treatment plants going into. So the compliance strategy component isn't really relevant for us. So again, we need to work through with them going, we might not want to be part of that, but we definitely want to be part of the design and the understanding on the options. So, just the brief update on the legislation. So the water services preliminary arrangement passed. So it requires us to do a water services delivery plan. It's clear that water future economic regulation will come out in December. And there was a bunch of fact sheets that were released about that future regulation that came out on the 8th of August. And if you've not seen them, they're quite simple 3-pager fact sheets around financing, planning and accountability, future arrangements for stormwater, economic regulation, drinking water quality regulation, water service delivery models, and standards to help reduce infrastructure costs. So there's some really good 2-3-pager fact sheets that's come out, which I will say has really helped us because we were always unsure what was going to come out in December. And this has given us a little bit of insight as to what that will look like come December. We don't know, but it's given us a really good direction on that.
They on DIA website, or how do we get access to those?
We can send you those links if you've
I would
not
like
got
to
them.
see them,
Yeah.
and I'm sure
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Relax.
but they're really good and they're really high level and really plain, simple. They explain clearly what the implications are for council and your decision making as well. So yeah, but that detailed regulation will not come out until December, but we've got good insight as to what that will be. I just want to hand out just a copy, and you've seen this slide before. Keep that. So we showed you this in a previous workshop, but the really what the content of that was, that's the.
Ian, just hold off until you get back to your mic, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Otherwise, the folks online can't.
So the Martin Jenkins report has really helped us understand the state of our current assets. So if you look at sections 1 to 9, as far as what we have to deliver against for this water services delivery plan, the Martin Jenkins report has really helped us get up to speed with items 1 to 9. It doesn't help us on the models that we'll choose in the future, which are items 10 to 14, but really has helped us on sections 1 to 9. So our intent is that we will focus in on closing the gaps, you know, looking at the concerns that you raised back in August as well, looking at the recommendations from the Martin Jenkins report and fill those gaps on sections 1 to 9 between now and the end of December. As we move into Q1 next year, that's when we'll get more clarity around what the Waikato Water Done Well team are doing, and then we can then start looking at options and delivery models. By the middle of next year, we'll need to go out to public consultation on this, with a decision coming back to you in August in order to meet the timeframes for government. So that's really the kind of timing that we're looking at a really high level. So over the next few months, focus in on filling the gaps and the knowledge gaps, and then look at the delivery model components from early next year, along with Waikato Water Done Well, a standalone option for TCDC, and really just having a look at those option models early next year. So that's the kind of intended plan way forward. So really, that was it from me. I mean, we'll focus in and we'll work with the Waikato Water Done Well, but we really do need to push to make sure that we've got really clear details from them. One thing that the Waikato Water Done Well team mentioned was they're seeking to get a CCO set up by June. If they have to do that, they'll need to consult in Q1 next year, not Q2, which is what we'll need to do for a water services delivery plan. So we need to just align the way, you know, the timeframes and just kind of how that will work. But again, we can come back at the end of October and seek some direction from you then.
Thank you.
Happy to take any questions.
Councillors, questions? Which John? John Morrissey, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, your worship. Look, I may have missed this, so sorry about my questions, but so the first instalment of $27,000, it's due in October to stay part of Waikato Water Done Well, get on the on-ramp, and I'm starting to dislike on-ramps and off-ramps, so that gets us there. Then another few months, there's another instalment of
So what we've been asked for from Waikato Water Done Well is 27,500 to pay for between now and the end of October. That gets us to a point of a heads of agreement. We've also been told there's another 81,000 due to get from the end of October through till the end of March next year. And that's to do two things. One is to look at establishment plans, which is what we want to understand, but also to look at a compliance strategy, which is, again, something we are not that particularly interested in. So we need to understand, you know, can we pay 60,000 and be part of that establishment information, but not the compliance strategy? So we need to work through that. But the next installment would be 81,000.
But it's 27 end of October, 81 by early next year, and then there's another. If we're staying on, if we're staying on the motorway and not getting off an off ramp, there's another instalment after that.
Yeah, of around 100,000.
So about,
and that's
talking,
set up
we're talking around about 230 odd thousand for this
Yeah, 208,000 in total. Yeah.
208,000. Okay, now that's all good. But I see, see, Mrs. CEO. So we may have access to some government funding for this, but we're unsure if we're going to be able to utilise that. If we can't, we've got to take it from retained earnings.
Oh,
We do have some government money in our kitty, and we are also entitled to some additional funding. So all put together, we have access to about 400K.
Yep.
And we need to provide evidence to the Crown that it is used towards voter reform activities. So before we tap into any council money, we do have access to some funds, which I am guarding very closely, may I add.
Yeah, and I would expect nothing less, Mo.
Man.
So, yeah, no, good on you. So, because I don't like using retained earnings at all, unless we have to. So my preference would be that it came from any government funding, and you're just checking out whether that's a viable thing, Mo, or you're just hanging on to your pot of gold tightly.
Just making sure the funds are directed to the correct place. That's really, the funds are available. So for all of the studies and additional work that's involved with this, we can use that before we start tapping into any council monies.
Okay.
does that cover the water services plan preparation?
Yes,
Yeah, okay. So, and we haven't got a costing on that yet.
not yet.
Yeah, okay.
We're meeting, I think, in a week.
In a week.
Then in a week's time.
And we'll
We'll
come
do that,
back
yeah.
at the end of October with that clarity around the budget, what budget's
Yep.
available and, that spend, that's what will come through by the end of October. We were kind of waiting for the legislation to come through because we didn't know if it was going to change. So now that we've got that clarity, we can come back.
Thank you. I am all about looking at every option that's available, and if we've got to run up with $27,000 to stay on the bus, so to speak, I can sort of stomach that a little bit more so if it comes from the government funding. But yeah, I'd be really concerned about going in too deep because those off ramps that Waikato Water done well speak about, I think they get steeper and steeper to get off the further down the track we go.
And sorry, just to add to that as well, it's not just the amount for the contracting, it's the staff effort to be able to support running both initiatives at the same time while delivering BAU. So again, that's something we can come back at the end of October to really understand, well, what is the resourcing demand? What is the cost? And really kind of give you a really full picture by then.
Thanks, Ian.
Martin, did you have a question?
Yes, and I'll try not to use too many, mixing my metaphors. So the long-term outlook on the report, page 167. In the column on the left-hand side under 6, 10-year outlook, towards the bottom it says revenues for water suppliers are expected to increase by 88% over the next 10 years. So that's locked and loaded into our long-term plan rates increases for the next 10 years. And those revenues are going up like that to enable us to say that it's sustainable as far as revenue and what we're going to be spending. Is that correct? I'm not sure.
That's correct. This information is all based on our long-term plan, so that's entirely correct.
And this is, in a way, regardless of which of the multitude of options that we're choosing. This is basically just locking in what we would need to do. And then until we have some sort of clearer picture about what might happen with various entities and what we might be saving or not saving.
Yeah, so probably treat this as a base model that we did for the long-term plan. There will be some changes. So for example, if we went for a regional approach with CCO, there'll be some different upfront costs and then maybe some different ongoing costs, and again, that's what we would need to work through. Even setting up the internal business unit, there might be some slightly different costs, but it wouldn't be significant. There's some actions as stated within the Martin Jenkins report that says we need to just double check the phasing. You'll see in that exact picture, it was quite lumpy, round about, 28 through until 30. Should we be phasing that out? So there's some actions we need to do to reconfirm the phasing and the amounts, but I think this is a good baseline model we can use from the long-term plan for a basis for the discussions.
Okay. And just a follow-up question, if I may, on that same page on the right-hand side, under that long-term perspective, The second paragraph says net borrowing is projected to increase by a further 130 million from 80 to 374 million. Those numbers don't seem to add up.
Which page are you on?
167, the right-hand side. I'm hoping our borrowing's not
Oh,
going to go
okay.
to up to 374 million.
That's only that page. That's all right. I'll have a look on the full report later on.
So I think that's right. So it's increasing from 80 to 210, which is, in today's terms, but then in real terms, when you actually add all the inflation on, that increases quite significantly.
Oh, so about 374 is
Yeah,
allowing for.
yeah.
Whoa, okay.
Thanks, Ian. Can I just ask, have we got an early indication of how many other councils of the Waikato Region councils, how many other councils are advanced in this process and on the Waka?
Sure. So as of yesterday, 6 had signed up. Obviously, they're waiting for the decision from today, so that would be 7. There's 3 outstanding. I think it's Hamilton City. Bear with me. Hauraki and Eileen, can you remember the other one? There was one more. White Tomo. Yeah, there was us, and then there was 4 more. Hamilton City was definitely one, but 6 of them have signed up.
Okay.
As part, and we would obviously be the 7th if we agree to move forward.
So Hamilton City and potentially Waikato District are out.
They've just not made the decision
They
yet.
just haven't made the decision.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And the rest are going through the process in terms of timing of their council meetings.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I talked to Julie from Taupo, who's the CEO down there. I mean, she's going, we need to kind of be in to understand what it is, because they want to look at all the options as well. So I think that email that Aileen sent through is just quite relevant to where we find ourselves. We want to be in, we want to understand they're in the same situation.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are, I think.
Just the one comment I would add to what Ian's saying is, in terms of water services, we are in a relatively good place compared to some of the other councils. A good example is we have almost 10 brand new water treatment plants. We've upgraded our wastewater infrastructure. So we are not really standing on a burning platform compared to some of the other councils.
Yes, that's a good point, Mo, and that's become quite evident when we have discussions with Waikato Mayoral Forum that there is quite a degree of difference, but we're in a pretty good space. Legacy of previous councils, so well done. Congratulations to them. Okay, we've got a bunch of resolutions to address on page 155. Any further questions, councillors, of Ian and Donna and Mo at this stage? Aileen has flagged, please, that item 6, the team would like to delete that from the list of resolutions. If we do that, then that leaves us with the rest of the resolutions, which I'd like to take as a block. So we have Terry moving. Do I have a seconder for those? Deli, thank you. I'll put the motion.
Okay.
Sorry,
And
Robin.
Resolution now becomes resolution 9, approves a budget of 27,000, amount to be confirmed. Is that solid enough for us to go on, or do we need to have is that sufficient is what I'm asking, because it's very loose.
Yeah, good.
Through the chair, I can answer that. It's now 27,500. So we could actually correct that in the resolution. I put that bit in the brackets to show that, because we weren't, by the time this agenda went out, we weren't really 100% sure what it was going to
No,
be.
I just want to
So-
make sure that the decision that we've made here isn't.
Great. It would be really good to change it to 27,500 if we can.
Thank you. Good point. We are, sorry.
Also the by district retained earnings.
Yes, so the reason why we put that in there was because Mo's got to do some work to see if we can, and I just didn't want to have to come back to council again. So, but it's all retained earnings is always a port of last resort for funding.
Thank you. Okay, so subject to item 6 being deleted, item 10, that number changed to 27,500. We have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Sorry, Gary, very happy for this to be part of the discussion, but turn your mic on.
What I was saying is there's just so many options and no one's certain. And do we want to just give 27,500? It's like throwing it into the wind, perhaps, because they do say we can do it. And do we need to look at that a bit more?
That's the cost of being in the game. We want to be in the game.
When do we have to be in by?
So we need to kind of be in the tent, and I think that's the thing. You know, will we go forward with the CCO? Potentially not. You know, probably not. But we need to be in the tent in order to understand what the options are. And regardless, by the time we come to next year in community consultation, we'll need to do proper options analysis anyway. So I think this is quite an effective way of getting that options analysis done, which we've got to do by statute anyway.
So Gary, you make a good point. There's two things I'd say. First of all, it's been flagged quite clearly to us that we think there's a very good chance of government funding to cover that, and potentially the other staged funds that we need for those tranches. So, but the second thing is there's a fairly high element of not a lot of choice in this. We have to deliver a water services delivery plan by August 2025. We don't have a choice in that. There is an expectation that we're examining being part of a CCO as part of that water. I get mixed up between Waikato Water Done Well and what's the national one?
Water Services Delivery Plan,
Yeah, but the
WSDP.
Local water done
local
well.
water done well.
That's the
Local
third
water
one.
done well, water services
well.
delivery
Okay.
plan, Waikato Water Done Well. But we are required to go down this path, and if we've got some government funding to do it, then that gives us a bit of reassurance that we're not dipping into our own pot at the moment.
Through the chair, my take on this is that we are required to keep an open mind, and we are required to do due diligence on options that are available, and that's the process.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to support on that basis.
Thank you, John. It's a good point. And we can't go out to consultation with our communities unless we've done exactly what Councillor Grant just said, that we've got to keep an open mind, look at the options, but then we've got to consult with our communities. So we've got to get those steps out of the way first. Aileen, did you? Yeah, thank you. Okay, I think we've had that vote, and that's, I think, did we pass that? I think we did. Thank you. Okay. Thanks, team.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors.
Appreciate it.
I'll continue to sit here because Glenn had to leave, and there's a report on the Matrangi wastewater, a budget adjustment. So.
Okay. Sure. I'm going to hand over to Aileen just before we start, please.
Yeah, so just by way of background, the observant among you will notice that there is also something in the CE's report related to this same item. And that relates to the previous financial year, which we needed to have wrapped up for our end of year financials. This one relates to the forward coming year, and feel a bit guilty about having Luke in the hot seat here, having just arrived with us. So I just wanted to say that the way this has been budgeted is the way that the previous regime budgeted for these types of scenarios. So where we've got consent costs, when we just don't know how big a consent process is going to be. The previous regime was of a mind to just budget a minimal amount and then just, get it out of cycle. We're now calling it unbudgeted funding request to top that up. I think the new regime has a different view about that, and going forward we'll at least make an attempt to budget what we think it might be, which will still be wrong, by the way, but hopefully it won't be so wrong. And with that, I'll pass over to Luke.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Deputy Mayor and Councillors. As you're most aware now that I'm the new Program Manager for the Capital Delivery Team, today staff are seeking a decision from Council to approve additional funding for the Wastewater Consent Renewal Project. I'd ask Council to note that one reference in the report evaded capture during reviews. Page 268 of the report refers to the Environment Court when actually it was the Regional Council hearing. As indicated in the report, Matarangi consent process has been significantly more complex and resource intensive than anticipated. Staff attended the hearing in July and further information has been requested of us. Since that date, estimates have been received by our external experts, and this forms the basis for this request today to enable staff to provide a full response back to the hearing. Staff anticipate another hearing in March 2025, which should see a favourable outcome to the Matarangi consent application. Staff today have provided 4 options for Council to consider and recommend option 1, as this will enable completion of the existing consent applications without compromising the budget allocated in year 4 of the LTP for the Coromandel wastewater consent renewal. I'll take the report as read from this point forward and am available for any questions.
Thank you, Luke. Mo, anything to add at this stage?
I don't have anything to add to what Luke's already mentioned. It's just that the Matarangi resource consenting process has become significantly more expensive than originally planned, and I will give councillors a separate update on that project. Yep.
Thanks, Mo. And I'd just like to flag that there will be some further information coming to councillors offline once we've finished this process. So probably not get into too much detail about the details and the costing at this stage. If we keep it high level, that would be really helpful. Thank you. So any questions, councillors? No. Martin, please.
Yes, so on page 270 under the preferred options, it says the draw forward existing funding from year 2 to 3 of the 24 to 33 long-term plan. So I know that when we were going through line by line of the long-term plan, there was let's kind of spread some of those rating impacts out by putting things in the year 2, 3. So for your crystal ball skills, are we likely to see other ones from those years come forward to happen? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So my understanding is by spreading it out made sense in one perspective. From a delivery perspective, often you need to actually pull some funding together to deliver on a time frame that isn't ours to follow.
Just one comment I would add to that is resource consents is extremely difficult to predict what the cost would be until you start getting into a hearing and additional studies and reports are required. Unlike a standard piece of infrastructure, which you would normally design and build, and you can quantify those amounts with reasonable accuracy.
Thanks, Mo. Terry.
I agree with you, Mo, that I just can't believe that these things are sort of a standard model design, that if you were building it through the Building Act, you'd follow the Building Act and do it. And now we've got all these extra consenting and doctors and lawyers and things coming to the table. It's just crazy, and it just keeps going up and up and up. And I feel the future doesn't look good if you don't have some management control around this, which is the government's problem. I know, not ours. So while it needs to be done, it's really disappointing we have to front so much money for this stuff.
Terry, I think you make a good point. However, it is an example of unfunded mandates, but at the same time, when it comes to wastewater, you don't want to get it wrong. We all know the consequences of wastewater being, in the wrong place at the wrong time. So it's a process that is defined, and we've got to follow that process. Okay. So we've got some decisions in front of us, page 265. Items 1 and 2, which is approving the additional funding. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Delhi. Yeah. Very good, thank you. I think most of the trouble's in your patch though, isn't it? So. All right, all those in favour? Thank you. Thanks, team.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. Thank you. I will be back again.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll be back. Okay. Is it just me, or is this longer than when we started? Is the extra things snuck on the end of it? Because every time I look at it, I swear when I leave the room.
I go and put some stuff in there.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Thank you. Did you hear that? Gary Taylor in a tie. And Stephen's in the gone to the opposite extreme. In his lumberjack shirt. Okay, so chaps, if you don't mind turning your mics on, we'll hand over to you, please, for an update.
Thanks, Mayor Lynn, and
Thank you.
look, we did have a very good discussion at the recent Sustainability and Community Resilience Committee, just having a look at the refreshed recovery plan. Today, the National Land Transport Program has been published. Slowly wading our way through 92 pages. So the focus on Thames Coromandel is quite small. So we're definitely, as we foreshadowed at the committee meeting, looking at the resilience project for the roading network. I would say we've finished round one. We've done well, but we are not where we want to be. So there'll be a need for us to continue the advocacy, both directly with New Zealand Transport Agency and the Regional Land Transport Committee to keep putting forward our view that we need a bigger investment pot for the state highway network and the local road network in our district, and that might take us another couple of rounds. We'll have to wait and see. So we thought that we would brief the community boards again this month to encourage them to keep that in view, and that we would look to organise a coordinated submission into any National Land Transport update or Regional Land Transport Plan update in 2025. We've got, there is 21 million that has come through for more resilience and repair work on the state highway. We had another slip over the weekend up near the new bridge. And you don't really want to ever say, well, we need another cyclone or another storm, because we don't. But it is those events that actually remind us that this is not really over. It's a pattern of infrastructure failure that is likely to be repeated in the coming years, and that will occupy a lot of your time to explain that to the community and to help them understand why you're putting the effort into the advocacy that we have started, and we suggest we continue.
Thank you, Stephen.
Let's pause there.
So the rest of the report, Your Worship, is just an update of where we're at. So we're open for questions.
Thank you. Reka, please.
Perfect. Thank you. And Stephen, you may not have the answer to this, but I've been asked a couple of times around State Highway 25A when people can expect work to start on Kuatunu Hill, which is still in a pretty shocking state. Can we get an update on that at some stage from NZTA?
So it's a project through you, Mayor. That's one of the projects that sit in the 21 million that has been approved.
So it wasn't budgeted for in the storm events, after the storm events?
It didn't make the immediate list of sites that needed remediation and rebuild, but it's definitely in the 21 million that was announced a few weeks ago. And the intention is that those repairs will be at a number of sites, including that one, over the next 6 to 12 months. We'll also be doing similar rebuild and remediation projects on the local road network, particularly up in Colville, Kennedy Bay Road and Tapu Kora Glen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Terry, please.
Yeah, thanks for the report. Yes, this Stephen done a lot of work and built a relationship through Wakatahi. I see David Spears has moved on. You've started another relationship building thing. So I feel a bit sort of uneasy about the number that's going to come through for us. It doesn't sound like it's going to be fantastic. I know you're only into the report early, but what's your feeling?
So in this round of the National Land Transport Program, we know how much we've got. We're still looking for about 100 million that's not there, that has not flowed its way through the system. We've got the 21 million. We've got all of the repair work that's been done to date, which is sort of circa 150 million. We're going to keep chasing the balance. We've also got about 35 million for those 3 bridge replacements that the minister announced a couple of months ago. So we're I think we would say, yeah, we have done well, but we have not met our own ambitious target of where we need to land the resilience project funding.
So just to confirm, the 3 bridges, is one of them the Ferrator Bridge or not?
So there's Pepe and Rama, and there's a bit of confusion about which the third one is. And it's probably because it's in the Hauraki district.
Could be the Ferrator one, you think? Oh, yeah.
And possibly is State Highway 26 or 27, where we have tended to focus a bit more strongly on the actual State Highway 25 loop.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. I've got a RLT. Oh, thank you. 2 seconds, John. RL, just before I forget, on Friday, I wonder if I could just get a quick briefing from the team before that. So I'm up to date with the work that you've done already on that. Thank you. John, sorry about that.
Thanks very much. I was just wondering, following up from Reka's questions, as to whether it's possible to be able to get a list of the projects that are now funded and if there's any timetable around those would be just really helpful. And my second question is in regard to the resilience kits. Just how many have we given out? And, obviously they have been well received, but quick summary of what's in them.
through the chair, the all 38 communities, a couple of them have joined forces, these of the smaller ones. So all 38 communities on the Coromandel have received resilience kits. So, and we're now on the final stages. If you have a look at the big container in the car park over the road, we are filling 5 of those. So these are what we call the caches, and they've got a lot of the bigger equipment that will be available, one to be transported, but it's also available for the larger communities. What they hold is pretty much basic life support for 3 or 4 days for a community. So it's a bit of generator power, it's communications, a bit of, some of them have got some food, and some of them have got the Starlinks and barbecues and so forth. So each community, we, because it was community led, they gave us the menu of ingredients that they wanted in their caches, and we went out and we bought pretty much what they had.
Were these funded?
100% funded by the government, NGOs and philanthropic organisations.
Can we get a list of the 38? Is that communities?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll provide you with a list.
Yeah, Aileen, please.
One of the questions I asked Gary and Stephen was, what's our return on investment for the work that we've done? I.e., you know, for $1 what the ratepayers put in, how much have we got? And they came back and said, we can't actually calculate that because the ratepayer hasn't even put in $1, because even the staff time was funded from elsewhere. So yeah, just a massive well done to these guys and the team behind them about just how much they've managed to land for us. You might want to comment, Gary.
I think the fact that the resilience project, we got $900,000. Yeah, it's a lot of money compared to the rest of New Zealand that was affected. We were top of the tree. Some of it fell on our lap, but we went hunting for the rest, driven by the CE, by the way.
Yeah. Dog with a bone. And bloody good job too. Terry, go ahead.
Yeah, just around those, Gary, I think they're a fantastic idea. Where are they staked? I thought was one is at the fire station, but they hold them in different places, do they? And who manages them?
So the fire stations, every fire station that's available that's where we are storing the kits, and the others, if they are not, if we don't have a fire station, they are stored on trust land or some land or our own reserve land in containers.
Right.
They are managed by us, and we have a management program now that will be going on. So it's fully funded for the 24-25 year. We'll be coming back to the annual plan and LTP for about $50,000 a year to maintain the entire kit system in terms of fuel, gas and everything else.
So I just need to understand this for clear. So who owns the keys? The council holds the key to them, or to the fire station?
Fire station, so the community own them. They are responsible for them. We will assist to maintain them, and the likes of the fire station and the area officers have keys. There's lots of keys. There's a set system of how they can be accessed.
We just had Lansar trying to get to them. They couldn't get any access to it, and it wasn't at the fire station. It was actually at 101 Lindsay Road depot. That's where it was staked there. So, but you know, we can talk about this later, but they were concerned about access to it. So
yeah, no, there was access to it. Whether Lansar needed that equipment or not, but anyway, yeah, we'll have a chat offline about it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do we have a resolution just to receive this report? There it is on page 275. Any further questions? You happy to move? Thank you. Robin, second. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. And if I can catch up a bit later on before Friday, just with a briefing, I don't know whether it's appropriate for Stephen, Ed, or whoever, but any information would be helpful. Thank you. Okay. Right, we're coming to 3.2, Chief Executive Report, and we'll hand over to Aileen. Thank you.
Yep, so very short report this month. It just feels like a couple of weeks ago we did the last one. So really not too much to report. You'll just see the addition of the processing days on the Lagoimas. Just reviewing those, we have 20 working days to do the Lagoimas. So pretty good numbers there from the team, and the number of closed ones is excellent, which means they've got a bit more time to start thinking through proactive releases and actually trying to get ahead of things. You're out of the outer cycle of approvals, so the delegation to me is that I can make these approvals and then report them to council. So the wastewater one, which we've covered, is the matter that Luke was speaking to, and then the roading. We had a weather event in May, and the delegation provides for me to make that approval and report it through to you. So it's reported there, and that saved Ed a whole report to council. Which hopefully that has sped things up quite a bit. We've put the usual customer services information in there, and just noting that Adriana has been out talking to the community boards about the local data. Just asking Brian to run his eye over this with a bit of a critical eye, just to make sure that we're reporting what's useful, and I fully expect some changes to come through the system in due course around what we're reporting. In our continuous improvement approach to reporting to you. And that's probably it. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Aileen. Councillors, any questions? John, go ahead.
Thank you. Page 281, significant increase in telephone calls. Can you just talk that through to us as to, I'm guessing it's some change in reporting rather than actual calls, is it?
I'm at a loss. Brian?
Yeah, from what I can see, the reporting's fairly accurate, John. So it could be that there's been an increase. The increase in calls for rates could be following an LTP. So that might be quite normal. I couldn't figure out. That wouldn't be under rates. I couldn't figure out there's quite a big increase in the building department, so I went back and had a look to see whether that was an increase in inspections, given that the road was closed for a period last year, and we did see a bit of a stall, but inspection numbers looked about the same. So there may just be some more inquiries coming through the regulatory system as we are seeing a little bit of a pickup in query around building and planning matters. But I think
sorry, go ahead, Brian.
I think the main point is, as Aileen touched on, my first look at this, I think we could, there'll be a version 2 that I want to socialise and potentially even slightly workshop with you, just to make sure that we're capturing it in the right way and that it is accurate.
Thank you. Gary and then Reka, please.
Yes, I'm probably sound pretty stupid, but I see there's been quite a few requests from Franklin Trees in different areas. Is that they're trying to work out because they're doing tree work or something? Franklin Trees are on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 requests in different parts, and I just can't follow what Franklin Trees is.
They're a contractor that trims trees.
That's what I thought it might be. Yeah, and they're just getting information. Okay. And the second question I have.
Sorry, just on that, when people ask for information, they don't need to tell you why they need it. They just ask for it. So, yeah.
And the other thing is, I just were looking at the press phone calls and that, and I had probably mentioned before that my son-in-law, who's a computer whiz and uses AI, have we done much with our request for service with AI?
So we're going to get our IT manager or CIO to come and talk to the Risk and Assurance Committee in due course about the use of AI in the organisation. As I understand it, we do quite a lot of it, and you might be surprised at just how much we actually do.
Agree, because it just makes staff more productive and other things that they need to actually put energy and time into.
Thank you, Gary. Reka, please.
Yeah, I was just going to speculate on John's query and say potentially something to do with water metering charges and the letters that would have gone out around that time. That was my speculation.
Correct. That was the third thing I should have said. I'm glad you're here.
Good percepting. Terry,
Just a little bit. So can we ask questions? Just asking questions, is that right?
go ahead.
Yeah, so one's around the Wangata Stormwater Improvement Project. It talks about going out to the public with a frequently asked questions and a letter to property. This is on page 282 at the bottom. What's the timing around that? Do we know?
It's September, which is now, isn't it?
Yes.
So it must be the coming 4-week period.
Okay.
You had a report in your last agenda that covered off that in some detail.
Yes.
Yep.
September. Okay. Thank you.
Terry, and I'm glad you raised that. We had a catch up, Mercury Bay councillors and I in Whitianga yesterday had a catch up with Rob Boston and Richard Shelford Woodcock from the representing the Ratepayers Alliance in this case. But Rob Boston was keen to pass on feedback about the working of the Whangamata Stormwater Group and was basically saying it's changed the landscape, really singing its praises, saying, you know, it's not without its issues because of, you know, certain individuals who have strong views on the way things should be done. But he said the overall effect across the town has been absolutely fantastic, and it's given people of the town a much greater understanding of the whole picture. So he was keen to have that feedback passed on back to council and back to our chief executive and staff. So I thought and please, those who were there, correct me if I've missed anything. Deli and John were in attendance there as well. So I thought I'd pass that on. Thank you. Yeah, and a good model that's happening in other parts of the district as well. So. Anything else? John, please.
Just for the sake of being a repetitive record, it would be lovely to be able to see some aging on the data that I keep asking every meeting.
Yeah. Yes, we've heard the request and we're working on it.
Okay. No further questions. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please, to receive the chief executive report? Robin, please, and Rekha, all those in favour? Thanks, Aileen. Mayoral report, I'm going to take it as read. I'll move it from the chair. Can I get a seconder, please? Deli, all those in favour? Thank you. No questions, no comments. Thank you. We're going to go now. Oh, hang on. Hang on. Yes, so we're going to report to exclude the public. Mover and a seconder, Rekha. Seconder. Sorry.
Through the chair, can we just make sure that we include 4.4 and 4.5, which were the two late items that we put forward on the agenda?
Okay.
The Chief Executive Review Committee recommendations also need to be included as part of this report.
Thank you. So we'll pass the motion to move to public excluded first. We've got a mover and a second. All those in favour? Thank you. We'll take a few minutes just to go through the process.